80-hour work weeks, toxic PIs, interesting personalities. We're going to get into all of that and more in today's video. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Amarachi. Welcome or welcome back to the channel. I recently got my PhD in chemistry with a concentration in biotechnology, and in today's video, we're going to be spilling all the tea about grad school. Let's get into it. So personally, I had an amazing grad school experience. My advisor was amazing. My experience generally was very positive, but I know that this is not the norm. For most people, their experiences are actually very horrible, and that's normalized as part of the grad school experience. Well, anyway, let's get into the video. The very first thing on my list is that grad school is the place where your healthy habits go to die and you just develop all kinds of unhealthy habits and coping mechanisms. In grad school, 60, 80-hour work weeks are normalized, and in some programs and labs, they're also expected. Mind you, you're not getting paid for working all of those extra hours. Depending on your contract and your program, you may be getting paid for only 20 to 40 hours worth of that work, but you're expected to put in 60 or 80 hours every week. I actually know someone who told me that they were interested in joining the lab, and the PI, the principal investigator, aka the advisor, the boss of the lab, the person who has the lab and runs the lab, told them that the expectation in this lab was, Monday to Friday, like 60 to 70 hours, and then they were expected to work one of the weekends. So either Saturday or Sunday, it was their choice. What? Like, what is that? Of course, the person ran for the hills because that's not what they were interested in signing up for. But for someone to just tell you up front, basically in different words, like, I expect you to work like a horse and nothing is going to be done about it. Yeah, this was pretty normalized. And then there's the other issue of just being unable to take a break. There are people who literally could not take a break. There are people who the only break they got in an entire year was like Christmas Day, the 25th. And that was it. They couldn't even take like the 24th off, or they couldn't even take like the 26th off, and then talk more of taking like an entire week between Christmas and New Year's. Impossible. There are certain people in certain labs that work so hard they cannot even take a break. So imagine what kind of habits you develop when you're in such environments, right? You probably don't have any time to take care of yourself, like physically. Your eating habits are all out of whack. Eating disorders are so common in grad school. People develop all kinds of illnesses from all of this excessive work and just being in these very unhealthy environments. It's truly awful. Awful, awful, awful. As you can imagine, the environment can be very, very toxic. I'm talking your boss is the toxic person. I'm talking your boss is coming in screaming at you, screaming at people. Yes, I'm talking your boss is micromanaging. They're checking your lab notebooks at the end of every day to make sure that you did work that day and seeing how much work you did that day. Yes, these are very real things that happen to very real people. Then there's the favoritism. Sometimes you can just tell who the PI's favorite is. Then there's the sabotaging of other people's works. Yes, someone is stealing your lab notebook, someone is ripping your lab notebook up, or someone is like messing with the reaction that you've set up, messing with your experiment, stealing your stuff. It's ridiculous. You would think that people who are in grad school are a bit more mature, but listen, it gets to a point where sometimes you can be driven to madness in grad school. The sabotaging, especially in organic labs, I've heard horror stories from organic labs. The sabotaging actually goes crazy. Then there's also the unnecessary competitions between lab mates, and most times this is actually perpetrated by the PI, right? I heard this story where someone was saying like a PI basically puts two people on the same project, not as collaborators but as competitors. Literally, they're like, the first person to take this to a stage where it's publishable gets published. Why would you do that? Assign people their own individual projects, or if you want two people to be on one project, it's not a competition. Don't make it a competition. Like, have them work on different aspects of the project. But these crazy people would assign two people in the same lab to the same project, and basically it's like fastest fingers first, off to the races. what? What? Nah, grad school sometimes is like a fever dream. It's just you're like, I'm sorry, what am I hearing? Now, because of the sort of environments that people are in, I found that a lot of people in grad school are in therapy. Yes. Yes. And you might say, oh, yeah, that's a good thing. They're trying to be well adjusted. They're using therapy to help them cope with life and like just work through difficult situations. That I agree. And, therapy is a great thing. It's a great resource or great tool. But let's peel the curtains back a little bit. What has put these people in therapy? For a large number of people, they started therapy when they got into grad school because they're like, I'm going crazy. I actually need some help to go through this time. That's how bad it is. I'm telling you, sometimes your experience really drives you to the point of borderline insanity. And then off of that, I was genuinely surprised that a lot of people in grad school are also medicated. Like a lot of people are on antidepressants. A lot of people need to get on antidepressants to be able to get through grad school. This is not a joke. Like grad school was really a wild experience. You'd find so many people in such a fragile mental state in grad school because of just various reasons, right? The work environment, the fact that most of the time what you're doing actually isn't working. It's like back to back failures and rejections. It's a lot. A lot of people are in such a fragile mental state that they need that external support, which, like I said, I'm not bashing therapy. I like therapy. I think it's very beneficial. But it was really surprising to me to realize that, wow, damn, like so many people actually in this department are in therapy and are on antidepressants. Or something else is that grad school is a place where excessive criticism is tolerated and even encouraged. So you're given a presentation and people are picking apart literally everything on your slide or everything that you say. You write a report, your PI is going to send it back to you all read. It's like nothing is ever good enough. Nothing is ever good enough. You might think like, oh, this is the best work I've ever produced. Nope. Nope. It's going to be returned to you read everywhere. I got to the point where I just started dissociating. I'm like, I'll write what I can. I'll give it to you. Give it to me in red. Accept all changes and suggestions. Thank you very much. Let's keep it moving because I wasn't going to sit there arguing with anybody. Mm-mm. You want it to be written this way in your own words? No problem. That's okay. But excessive criticism, people just picking apart everything that you say or write is so normalized in grad school. It's actually ridiculous. Also, grad school is a place where you would meet a lot of interesting personalities. Let me put it that way. Because, science tends to attract very brilliant people. And unfortunately, the most intelligent people may not have the best EQ or emotional intelligence. Yes, I will leave it at that. I won't be saying more than that, but just know that Grattle is a place where very interesting personalities meet. Before you get into grad school, it may be your dream to work for this very well renowned person in your field. But I'm here to tell you that sometimes working for these very famous people might as well just be a death sentence. Yes, yes. These people often are like the worst of the worst. They are the worst of the worst. It's like there's just no balance. They're either micromanagers who are toxic and borderline insane, or they swing to the other end where they're basically unavailable. You don't see your boss for months on end. It's like the more famous a person is, especially in the field of, I guess, like chemistry and science, where people can have companies spun out of their lab and their work. The more famous your PI is and the more, I guess, busy they are with their non academic job, the worse your experience is going to be. Period. Because you just can never get a hold of these people. They're busy working on their startups. They're trying to like improve their business and get this company up and running and maybe even get it sold, etc. etc. It's almost impossible to pin that person down. And again, sometimes these famous people are like the worst. They're the worst offenders. They're the most toxic. They're the ones pitting lab members against themselves. So yeah, sometimes it's Listen, it's I wouldn't advise working for a person who's pre-tenure, but I also wouldn't say that you should go work for the most famous person in your field because sometimes they're the worst offenders. Yeah. They're actually the worst offenders. So I don't think that people realize that science isn't really as glamorous as people think it is. These days there has been a rise in like grad school influencers, PhD influencers, which is fine and good. Like I personally try to film a couple days in my life, try to document my journey here and there, but I wasn't able to keep up with that because honestly, most of the days were so monotonous, and more often than not, there just was nothing interesting happening. It was just repeating the same experiments over and over again, troubleshooting. You change one thing and then you try something else, and then sometimes you work for months and months and it doesn't even work. Your hypothesis might be completely off. Your experiments just fail over and over again. This isn't glamorous. This isn't glamorous. I think maybe the most glamorous part about grad school is going to conferences. If you happen to go to like a fun place, like I got the opportunity to go to San Diego for a conference. That was fun. I've also gone to like Orlando for a conference, been to Atlanta for a conference. Maybe those are like the most glamorous parts. Every other thing is really just horrible grunt work. You're working and working, and none of this is fun. None of this is glamorous. So, if you're thinking about going to do a PhD because you see like the influencers online, have a rethink because none of this is fun or glamorous. And finally, nobody knows what they're doing. Yes, nobody knows what they're doing. Your PI doesn't know what they're doing. The postdoc in your lab doesn't know what they're doing. The other grad students or undergrads research techs don't know what they're doing. I know this is a very blanket statement, right? But let me explain what I mean. All of these people might have an idea of things they want to try to answer a question or to like move whatever forward, but they cannot guarantee you that it's going to work. They actually don't even know for certain that it's going to work. It's a lot of trial and error. It's not a thing where people go in and they're like, I know for sure if I do A, B, C, the result is going to be X, Y, Z. No, you don't know. Nobody knows. It's a lot of trial and error. And most of the time, it results in a lot of failures. Failures, back to back, back to back failures. And all of those failures result in a lot of self doubt. So even the brightest scholars, the most amazing PIs, the most amazing grad students, your colleagues who you think are the smartest, they all have imposter syndrome. Everybody from A to Z is battling imposter syndrome in some way, shape, or form, and nobody knows what they're doing. So, have you ever been to grad school or have you ever worked in a research lab? What are some of the most insane things that you saw happen while you were, in grad school or even working as an undergrad or a research tech? Share in the comments. I'm really, really curious to know because I know that some madness happens in these research labs. Madness, I tell you. And that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you hit that like button if you haven't already. Let me know in the comments which of these things you found the most surprising, interesting, jarring. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. And of course, subscribe if you're not subscribed already. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next video.